Well, thank you, Ambassador Fraser. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's indeed a pleasure for me to be here today, and I think this conference is a tremendous success, especially as it goes in parallel and rather dovetails the parliamentary hearings of the Standing Committee of International Relations and International Development Foreign Relations. But I'm especially pleased that, notwithstanding this late Thursday afternoon and a rather rainy and dark day, the room, this big hall, is still filled with very enthusiastic participants. This wasn't the case in my last similar conference, where by the time I got to my speaking part, and somehow suspiciously I was also the last speaker at the last panel, by the time I started speaking, there were about 20 participants left. By the time I finished speaking, there was only one participant left. Needless to say that by the time I finished speaking, as a good Ukrainian, I'm very persistent, so I did finish my speech. I walked to the gentleman and I said, "Sir, thank you so much for your interest in the topic, for your patience and for your support." And he replied, "Well, thank you, but you don't have to thank me because actually I am the last speaker." I have to confess, ladies and gentlemen, that I actually stole this joke from our Minister of Finance, Honorable Jim Flaherty. And those who know Jim know that he is a very respectable and a serious gentleman, but he can always tell a good joke at the moment is right, so I'm just trying to do the same thing. And I have to confess that I got a joke from him, so our discussant, Mr. Sherr, doesn't accuse me of plagiarism. In any case, now that I got your attention and perhaps woke you up on this rainy and dark afternoon, let's talk serious business. The topic that I was given to present today is Ukraine's Euro-Atlantic integration. I think that the topic is an extremely challenging one. Not because of all the controversy that has been surrounding this topic over the past 15 years or so since its inception, but more so because it's very stagnant. Since that time, President Yanukovych decided that Ukraine will not join NATO, and the Ukrainian parliament support him all the way. I suppose one can say there is nothing to talk about Ukrainian Euro-Atlantic integration. What would challenge me is the topic even relevant today? Is it important today? I would like to submit to you that the topic of Ukraine's Euro-Atlantic integration goes far beyond the interests of Ukraine, or Ukrainian diaspora for that matter. I think that since Ihor came to power, not that much has changed in Eastern Europe. Ukraine is still located at the crossroads of East-West, at the frontier of European Union and NATO. I think it's even more topical today that we had, I was going to say elections, but I think Mr. Amsterdam would disagree with that, and so we'll call it quasi-election in Russia. And the threat that is there to Ukraine, the threat that is there to the energy stability of Europe, I think is great, and therefore it is topical today. Ukraine still has a great population, Ukraine still has a great talent, scientific potential. Ukraine is located where it's located, as I said, and therefore we have to discuss Euro-Atlantic integration, notwithstanding with Mr. Yanukovych and company decided to join NATO or not. I also believe, as was discussed today, that we cannot discuss Ukrainian-NATO relations as Ukrainian-nation relations topic, standalone topic. I believe it's all very much interrelated with Ukrainian-European aspirations, with Ukrainian relations with Russia and the West, and topics such as security and stability of Europe. I do not want to spend too much time on the specifics, but for the sake of those who perhaps in the audience who didn't follow the topic of Ukraine-NATO relations over the past 15 years, I would like just to provide a very quick outline of what actually happened, because we have some interesting ups and downs and some interesting twists. So the actual relationship started in 1997, in February, when Ukraine, as the first country of the former USSR, signed the Partnership for Peace. That year was a good start because in that year, NATO helped Ukraine with the Kharkiv drinking water disaster, and the start was very positive. On March 9, 1997, the first ever official NATO Information Documentation Center was opened in Kyiv, aimed to foster a positive image of the alliance in Ukraine. And so far, so good. Ukraine is moving slowly but steadily toward cooperation with NATO and perhaps NATO membership. Then year 2002 comes in, and Ukrainian government's relationship with the government of the United States and other NATO countries really deteriorated. And that was due to accusations that Ukrainian government, the time government of President Kuchma, provided radar Kunchuga equipment to the regime of Saddam Hussein, which claims, by the way, were not proved afterwards, but that was the accusation at the time. Now, the interesting thing is that the same year, in November 2002, the NATO-Ukraine Commission adopted a Ukraine-NATO action plan. So I believe the decision was right, that notwithstanding the Western powers' displeasure with Kuchma and his regime, at a time, the Western leaders realized the importance of Ukraine's geopolitical game and decided to start this process to pull Ukraine closer into its orbit and not further away. Then comes and goes the Orange Revolution, and post-Orange Revolution in 2006, at a time the opposition leader Viktor Yanukovych signed the so-called Memorandum of National Unity agreeing to maintain Ukraine Euro-Atlantic integration vector. He went to Brussels, he didn't say many words, but essentially he confirmed the same thing. So this is the same Viktor Yanukovych who now is so much against Ukrainian Euro-Atlantic integration. A couple of years later, on 16th of January 2008, President Viktor Yushchenko, at the time Prime Minister Yulia Tymoshenko, and the Parliament Chairman Arseniy Yatsenyuk, they signed a statement calling for consideration on Ukraine's entry into NATO membership action plan, so-called MAP, at the Bucharest NATO summit. At the time, US President George W. Bush, as well as both candidates Barack Obama and Senator McCain, supported these aspirations. As we all know, due to opposition from Germany and France, is obviously some advice from Russia. This didn't happen, unfortunately. Following the election, newly elected Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych stated on February 14, 2010 that Ukraine's relations with NATO were currently, and I quote, well-defined, and that there was no question of Ukraine joining NATO. He said that the issue of Ukrainian membership of NATO might emerge at some point, but we will not see it in the immediate future. On June 3, 2010, the Ukrainian parliament executed the goal of, and then integration of Euro-Atlantic security and NATO membership was not a priority anymore, and essentially they stated that Ukraine cannot be associated as a member with any alliances, it can cooperate as required, but nothing further. And so we come to this point where we can ask once again ourselves this rather logical question. Is there a point moving forward in this Euro-Atlantic integration? Is it relevant? In my opinion, yes. It's important. Yes, it is very much relevant. Why? Over the past 2 years, Ukraine has been persistently dragged into Russian sphere of influence by the openly imperialistic and clearly anti-democratic and brazenly anti-Western regime of Vladimir Putin and company. As was pointed out by Mr. Rybachuk, Mr. Piotkovsky, Mr. Tarasuk, Mr. Nalyvaichenko, and others over the past couple of days, now that Vladimir Putin is back in power, well, he is still in power, just with the new role and the new powers, as a new mandate, one of his key priorities for the Russian regime, as alluded by Mr. Putin himself, becomes the re-establishment of so-called near-abroad control. And so, no doubt, the pressure in Ukraine will increase on both economic and political fronts, and should the current Russian regime succeed in exerting this control over Ukraine, the balance of powers in Europe would shift, certainly not in the favor of the West. As Zbigniew Brzezinski, former US National Security Advisor, stated in his latest book, and I quote, "Time may not be working in favor of a voluntary submission by Kyiv to Moscow, but impatient Russian pressures to that end, as well as the West's indifference, could generate a potentially explosive situation on the very edge of the European Union. As for the West's relationship with Russia, I am most supportive of the close cooperation in this regard, but not at the expense of Ukraine and other states of so-called near abroad. The problem is not with Russia, as Mr. Piotkovsky will sure agree with me, but with the current Kremlin regime, for which, as Mr. Sherr stated during his parliamentary hearings testimony, and I quote, democracy stops where Ukraine begins. Instead, I urge all concerned to heed the advice once again of Brzezinski, who stated that the key point to bear in mind is that Russia cannot be in Europe without Ukraine also being in Europe, whereas Ukraine can be in Europe without Russia being in Europe. Indeed, Ukraine's relationship to Europe could be the turning point for Russia itself, either to be a part of Europe as well, or to become a Eurasian outcast, neither truly European nor Asian, and mired in its near and broad conflict. End of quote. And so, in my humble opinion, ladies and gentlemen, the bottom line is this. The current Russian regime will never support Ukraine's NATO bid, and hence the West needs to recognize this, and a certain degree of confrontation with Russia will be necessary. At the same time, West needs to take a step when the moment is right to pull Ukraine into spheres of influence as it pulled Romania or Albania, notwithstanding real or imaginary threats. And I would like to emphasize this we're talking about today, about the democratic processes in Ukraine. And certainly the regime of President Yanukovych needs to be kept in check. But as we do this, let's ensure that we do not do more harm than good, and we do not push Ukraine further into Russian sphere of influence. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, I will leave you with one question as some food for thought. What if, at a 2008 NATO summit in Bucharest, even earlier, Ukraine was offered a membership action plan, even full membership? Would the balance of powers in Europe be different today? Would we still have to guess today so much regarding what Mr. Putin and company will do over the next 6 months and how it will affect the balance of Europe? Would a deterioration of democracy in Ukraine, even under the current regime, be as severe? Perhaps good questions for follow-on discussions. Thank you.